Hi everyone, Aaron here with Ghost Raptor Gaming and Guns. And today I thought we'd do something just a little bit different. So, more recently I've been talking about more simplistic Western style guns. And so I started thinking, what if we took things a little further back than that? So today we have several examples of black powder firearms. And I'm going to go through some of those and the general philosophy of use on these guns and my overall opinions and thoughts on these guns. So I think the first thing that we should start with now is the Hawken rifle. This is a Traditions 50 caliber Hawken rifle. It was a do-it-yourself kit. I actually finished the barrel, finished the stock, assembled all the pieces. You do everything basically besides producing the stock and producing the barrel in action yourself. But you have to put it all together, you have to finish everything yourself. And so this is what I have. This is pretty, this is a pretty good example of what you would see in early black powder firearms, except for the fact that this isn't a flintlock or a matchlock. Black powder firearms go all the way back into like the 1400s, and they had matchlock rifles, which was basically a pan with powder in it, and obviously it goes from the barrel to the main charge where the projectile is and all that. But it's basically like a wick that you would keep lit, and you wouldn't pull a trigger, you like pull a lever and it would touch the powder and ignite it. And then of course we went to flintlock, which was essentially the same thing but with a more modern trigger mechanism, and then a flint and steel striker. You'd pull the trigger, the hammer would drop, the flint would scrape a piece of steel, which would ignite, drop into the powder pan, and boom. And then you have up to more modern ones. This is kind of a cap and ball. This one uses the same kind of primers you would use in a revolver, right here on the nipple. So it's similar to a musket primer, but it's not quite the same thing. And this is a 50 caliber rifle. This was pretty typical for a very long time. You saw 50 caliber rifles, 60 caliber rifles. There were some 30s in there and stuff like that. But generally 50 or larger became the standard, was the standard all the way up through the Civil War. Now these black powder rifles, you can get more modern versions, and I'll show you one of those in just a minute. If you don't know how a black powder rifle works, we'll go through it just real quick. You get your powder or powder substitute. I like to use Pyrodex, and then you put a pre-measured charge down the muzzle, and you put your projectile here. Then you use your ramrod, which is retained under the barrel, to push your projectile down until it stops right about there. And I really wanted to show you how far it should go down. It should go down to about there because this is loaded. I do have a charge and a bullet in here, no primer on it. And you'll tap it down like that, and you might have to put some real force on it, but it'll work. That'll come out. You can replace your rod if you so wish. Some people just simply stick them into the ground because they're target shooting. And that was fairly typical among soldiers during the Civil War. And then you'll bring your hammer to half cock, put your primer on, bring it to full cock, and you're ready to go. This particular one has a double trigger. So this first trigger engages the sear. It's like a safety. It automatically turns on every time. You have to pull it if you want to pull the primary trigger. And then you pull the trigger, hammer will drop, smash the primer, ignite your powder, and the bullet will go down range. So this was a very typical gun for a very long time. And now there are similar versions, and there are a lot of different versions of long guns out there. This is an original Belgian-made, handmade double barrel shotgun that is a muzzleloader. And it does use actual musket primers, not modern revolver primers. And I've shot this gun. This is a lot of fun to shoot, and it is just beautiful. It was built in the 1860s, around the time of the Civil War. Just really, really cool. So they're shotguns too. And these are still made. Modern muzzleloading rifles aren't that expensive. They're actually kind of cheap. Muzzleloading shotguns, however, are very expensive, around the $1,000 mark. And now we've come really far with them. Here is another Traditions. This is a 50 caliber, what's called an inline muzzleloader. It can take the same charge and the same projectiles as the older muzzleloaders. It has a thumb hole stock, camouflage, stainless steel. So you can use black powder or black powder substitute in these things. Same loading procedure is the same, except it is based on a break action, much like the H&R 20 gauge review I did. If you haven't watched it, please go do that. But you'll open it here, and you'll actually put in just a shotgun shell primer. And then you'll close it, cock the hammer, and fire it the same way. So what can you use these kinds of long guns for? Well, if you're a hunter, you already know that these things are used consistently for deer hunting, but you can get smaller versions, like 31 caliber versions for small game. You can get 50 caliber versions and even bigger ones, but generally what you see is 50 caliber. And I have seen guys shoot anything from small deer, like Sitka deer, all the way up to elk. I've seen people take elk with them. They're quite powerful, they're quite accurate. And if you just kind of want to extend your season, like here in Rhode Island where I live, shotgun season is actually only about 2 to 3 weeks long. Muzzleloader season is considerably longer. It's a couple months long, and then archery runs almost through the entire year. But if you're one of those guys who wants to extend their hunting season for deer but isn't confident with a bow, a muzzleloader is a good option for you. What else could you use those for besides hunting? I probably would use them for some target shooting, and there are some rare, hard to find competitions, but there are black powder, like long range competitions that you'll use, like more so like the Hawken rifle and traditional muzzleloaders, but those competitions are out there. They're very hard to find, but if you can find them, get in there, because I haven't done one, but they just look like so much fun. They're so cool. Speaking of other firearms, you also have single shot pistols, and then you have revolvers as well, and this is what people think about generally speaking when you talk about black powder shooting. This is a Pieta 1851 Navy Colt copy in 44 caliber, and then of course that's my brother's gun, hasn't been fired yet. And then here is my 1860 Army commemorative model from Pieta, 1861 Colt copy, also in 44 caliber. And these are used by reenactors along with some other muzzleloading rifles and shotguns. They're used in cowboy action shooting. They're kind of leading the way on historical accuracy right now when it comes to that kind of thing. So these are getting more and more popular on that particular circuit. And I have to say, I really like the old spirit of these guns. They're a lot of fun to shoot. You know, you have your primer, so when the hammer drops, you get a little snap, and then you'll get kind of a louder boom and a lot of smoke, and that's because there's a delay between when the primer goes off and when the powder ignites, and it's just really, really cool. Just like a Civil War soldier, just like a gunfighter in the early days of the Wild West, just really, really cool guns, and a lot of fun to have with them. And they are accurate and they are powerful. Don't let these things fool you. You think that this is an old gun and compared to your Glock this thing sucks. Well, I'll tell you what, in comparison it might, but I have personally shot bowling pins regularly with this gun at 100 yards. And some of these black powder guns are just as powerful as modern firearms. The Colt Dragoon model specifically was designed to shoot horses from underneath your enemies. And it's as powerful today as a .357 Magnum is. So it is actually quite a powerful gun. So these things don't lack stopping power at all, and they are very accurate. Now, am I saying that you should use them for self-defense or home defense? I probably wouldn't recommend that. You could, just like any lethal weapon, anything at all, it can be pressed into service if needed. You know, there are people who get killed with steak knives, so take that for what you will. I wouldn't recommend it, but you could do it if you needed to. As a hunting gun, I probably wouldn't recommend a revolver. I'd stick to a long gun, like that modern kind of muzzleloader or that Hawken rifle. So target shooting, you could do it. Historical reenactment, you could do it. Competition shooting in limited capacities, yes. Cowboy action shooting and long range musket shooting and that kind of thing is out there. How about survival? How about a survival gun? Well, I would say yes, just because you can use something like this to subsidize your normal ammo usage. So if you have a couple of different guns and you don't, especially if you don't reload your own ammunition, this is a good way to go. Just because it means that you have extra rounds that you can use if you need to. Black powder supplies are plentiful and they're not regulated as much as normal ammunition and firearms are, so you can find black powder revolvers and rifles just like these and all the necessary supplies, all the kit that you need with it at, like, literally tackle shops, at some sporting goods stores, and there's no federal regulation on it. So you just walk in, say you want to buy this stuff, you buy it, and you walk out, and that's it. There's no paperwork, there's no waiting period or anything like that. So it's a really good hobby to jump into very easily. The other thing is it's very budget friendly. I've seen 36 caliber 1851 Navies. Again, this is a 44, but they make 36 caliber versions. I have seen them with, in that caliber with a shorter barrel, like a 5-inch barrel, with all the tools and all the kit necessary to start, except for the powder and the primers, which you can also order right on their website. And the gun with all the tools and the starter kit was like $158. And then plus your shipping, you're into it for over $160, your powder, your primer and stuff. You order all that together right off of Cabela's and have it shipped right to your door, and you can be into it for about $250. So it's a really cheap hobby to actually get into. And then you can do cowboy action shooting and target shooting and just have a lot of fun, and just as a hobby. But again, you could also use it for that emergency preparedness kind of thing to subsidize your normal ammo usage. And you can find this stuff anywhere, almost anywhere. Like I said, tackle shops and bait shops, sporting goods stores, gun shops, obviously. And you can go out and you can find those supplies. So I think it's a good thing that it is kind of going through a resurgence right now, and people are kind of enjoying and getting into this kind of hobby. The firearms are very cool. They're historically significant. And just there's a lot of mystique around these guns. You know, Wild Bill Hickok used 1851 Colt Navy revolvers, cap and ball, black powder, just like this, for a number of years before he got newer guns. But he used them and he loved them. And yeah, you can use them for self-defense. You can use them for survival. There's a lot of people who were killed with these throughout history, not just in the United States, but worldwide. But predominantly you see the Revolutionary War here, and you have Civil War here, and you have early conflicts with Native Americans. And so, I mean, these things are lethal. Don't think that they're not. So you can use them for survival. You can use them for an emergency survival kind of scenario, apocalyptic, or just any kind of shit hit the fan scenario. You can use them for that. Now, it wouldn't be my primary choice, but you can. So I think overall they're pretty interesting, historically significant guns that are a lot of fun to shoot, a lot of fun to use, and there's a certain just mystique about them. So I do recommend that everybody owns one, whether it's a single shot muzzleloader or whether it's a revolver. Those are your cheapest options, of course, or if you're into that kind of thing, a black powder shotgun. Go out there, get into the hobby, enjoy shooting sports, support shooting organizations and firearms enthusiast organizations. And of course, please, if you can, support me via Patreon. $1 a month will get you exclusive content. February, I have the Q&A session coming up. Q&A number 1, if you are a patron on Patreon and you're donating at least that $1 a month to me, you'll be able to ask as many questions that you want about anything to do with, you know, the games, the firearms, or myself, or anything related therein. So you can go ahead and ask me all those questions, and I'll have a video specifically for you guys. If you're not on Patreon, you will not be able to ask me any questions. So get in there, help support the project, help this thing keep going, and I will see you guys on the next video. There will be some gaming content coming up. I've been asked that a few times, so don't worry. I have a couple of playthroughs and stuff set up that'll be coming your way shortly. So if you're here for the gaming footage and you haven't gotten it yet, don't worry, you're gonna get that within the next few weeks. And I think that's all I have for you guys today. This has been Aaron with Ghost Raptor Gaming and Guns. Thank you for watching. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. Bye.